Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gift. In this video I'll be making this milkmade bubble dress. I'll be drafting the pattern first before transferring it to my fabric. At the top of the paper I'm going to rule a straight line which is going to serve as the shoulder line or the starting line. From the shoulder line, I'll start taking my vertical measurements. From my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Then from my shoulder to my under bust is 13 inches. From my shoulder to my waistline is 15 inches. Then I'm going to add extra 2 inches to the half length because of the back waistline. So that is the back side allowance. So I'm going to rule out all the dots on a straight line and label them. From the center of the paper on my shoulder line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is going to give me 8 inches. I'm going to come down by 1 inch from that 8 inches as my shoulder slope. Then I'm going to come down by 8 inches from that shoulder slope. That is my round armhole measurements divided by 2. It gave me the 8 inches. So I'm going to connect the shoulder slope to the armhole measurements. Then I'm going to curve out the armhole line like this. So to get the midpoint of the armhole line, I'm going to divide the line into 2, which gave me 4 inches. I'm going to go out by half an inch from that 4 inches. On this line, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, which gave me 8.5 inches. Then I'm going to connect the midpoint of my armhole to the bust measurement. Then I'm going to connect the one at the top to the shoulder slope like this. Then I'm going to take the neckline measurements, the width of 3 inches and the depth of 3 inches. This is not necessary though. I'm just taking my basic bodies before altering it to the style I want. So I'm going to connect the 2 dots together. Then I'm going to connect the shoulder slope to the tip of the neckline like this. From the center of the paper, I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I marked that on my bust point line. I came down by 1 inch from the bust point line, and I marked the 4 inches also on my under bust line. So I'm going to rule a straight line from that 1 inch to the end of the paper. So I'm going to go out by half an inch on both sides of the line like this. Initially, the dart is supposed to start from the under bust because we are making a straight milkmaid that does not have a cut on the center. So I'm going to extend the dart to just my under bust line. So while taking yours, you should just mark your dart line on your under bust line and go out by half an inch on both sides of the line and connect it back like this. So I've already marked my bust measurements divided by 4. On this point, I added 1 inch seam allowance to the side because I'm going to make use of a stretchy fabric. On my under bust line, I'm marking my under bust measurements divided by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance. On my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurements divided by 4. Then I'm going to replace the dots. I have 1 inch there, so I'm going to mark the 1 inch. Then I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance to this side. Then what I have on the waistline, I'm going to mark it on the top length also. Then I'm going to connect all the points together. From my shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 7 inches, then which I just marked. Then I'm going to extend that point on a straight line to the center of my paper like this. So this is where the top is going to start from. It's going to sit on my chest line. So you can extend yours to either 8 inches. It depends on how you want your cleavage to show, or you can make it lesser. From the center of the paper on this line, I'm going to go out by 1 inch like this. Then I'm going to connect that 1 inch to my initial waist measurement before the seam allowance. So on my waistline, I'm going to connect it to my initial waist measurements before my seam allowance. So I'm going to be using this part of this curved ruler to connect it. You can use your free hand and you can give it whatever shape you want, so you can make it more sharper than mine. So I'm going to cut out the excess part of the paper I don't need anymore. So after cutting, this is what I have. So I'm going to use this paper to cut the back fabric. So I went ahead to fold in the allowance for the back waistline, because we'll not be adding any back waistline to the back, and I'm going to follow the shape and cut. I added half an inch to the length and I added half an inch to the top. So I'm not going to be adding zipper allowance to this because I'm using a stretchy fabric. So if you're adding zipper to yours, ensure you add your zipper allowance to it. So I'm going to remark my dart on this paper. I marked my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2, which is 4 inches, and I'm going to notch that 4 inches so I'll know where to take my dart when I get to my machine. Now we are going to proceed with the front pattern. So I'm going to, from my under bust line, I'm going to split the paper into two from the under bust line. If you want to remove the dart, you can fold it over and use your tape to hold it down, or you can just cut it out. I'll be adding that to mine. So for this top part, we'll be doing the slash and spread method. So on the bust point line, I'm going to be marking 1 inch to the end of the paper. So the interval between each of the dots I'm marking is 1 inch. So I'm going to use my ruler to rule out the dots on straight lines. Then I'm going to label them. So I have 1 to 10. So I'm labeling them from the center, so I'll be able to know their difference. So this paper is going to be too much if I decide to use the 1 inch. So I'm going to use 2 inches. So that means I'm going to cut 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together, 4 and 5 together, just like that to the end. So I have 5 pieces. So I went ahead to use them to cut my fabric. So I pinned it down on my fabric, and the interval between them is 2 inches. So ensure that is well placed on your fabric. I added half an inch to the length and I added 1 inch to the top. I also went ahead to cut the down part of the fabric and the lining piece I'll be using for it. So I have 2 pieces for the down part and 2 pieces for the up part also. So I'm going to mark the dart on this part of the fabric like this. Then I'm going to fold them together and notch it, so I'll be able to easily identify where to take the dart from. So ensure your fabric is folded into two before you cut this up part of the paper. So you can see how my fabric is, it's folded into two. Even the lining is folded into two. The center has a closed edge, so I'm going to unpin the paper from it and open it up. So this is what it looks like, and the lining is the same thing too. So I'm going to take this to my machine and run a gather stitch at the top. So I'm going to gather the lining separately from the main fabric, but I'm going to gather both of them. Then I'm going to take the dart on these parts. So this is the fabric I'll be using for the balloon part of it. The which is my waist measurement times 2. So if you want this to be really full, I would advise you to use your waist measurement multiplied by 3. I don't have enough fabric, that is why I multiplied mine by 2. So this is the lining piece. So the lining piece is 3 inches shorter than the main piece. So my main piece, the actual length of the fabric here is 15 inches, but I added another 3 inches fabric to it. I joined the fabric to it, so the length of my fabric is 18 inches and the lining piece is 15 inches. So I'm going to be folding it in by 3 inches with the lining. So I'm going to place the two right sides on each other and I'm going to drag the lining to the other end of the to the end of the main piece. Then I'm going to use my hands to pleat it like this. So I'm going to pleat it and use my pin to hold it down. So you're just going to use your hands to make the pleat here. So when I pleat, I'm going to take my pin and hold it down. So I'll make sure I pleat to my hip measurements, to my round hip measurement, plus 2 inches seam allowance. So if you're adding zipper to it, you pleat it to your hip measurement plus your zipper allowance and 1 inch for ease. So I pleated mine to my hip measurement, which is 36 plus 2 inches seam allowance, making it 38. So I finished the pleating off camera and this is what I have. I'm going to turn the fabric over to the right side, then I'm going to drag their two waist, and I'm going to drag the two top of the fabric together like this. I'll make sure they are equal, then I'm going to pin them together. I'm going to arrange it on each other, then I'm going to take it to my machine and run a straight gather stitch on it. After I gather it, I'm going to drag it to my round waist measurement plus half an inch seam allowance that I'll use to close it up. So if you're adding a zipper to it, drag it to your waist measurement plus the zipper allowance. So I'm done with the front gather. So I did the gather separately and I dragged it to the size of the back. So ensure this front, if you gather it, it will fit into the back. So this is what I'll be using for my sleeves. The length is 15 inches and the width is 3 inches. You can make it as wide as you want. So I closed the side and one of the edge, so I'll be able to use it to turn it over to the right side. So after I turn it over to the right side, I'm going to cut the edge that I closed. I'm going to pass this elastic band through the fabric. The length is 8.5 inches. So my safety pin is already on it. So with the help of the safety pin, I'm going to pass it through this fabric like this and secure both sides with my office pin before stitching it on, before using my machine to stitch it. I'm going to do the same thing for the other sleeves. So when you gather these parts, you fit it to your back fabric to make sure it fits into it. It should be the same thing with your back fabric. So I'm going to be adding these sleeves to it. So I'm going to check and see what I have here, if it's the same measurement with my back piece, which is the same thing. So I'm going to leave half an inch from the armhole, then I'm going to place these sleeves like this and stitch it to it. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm going to leave half an inch and stitch the sleeves to it. After I stitch the sleeves to the main fabric, then I'm going to place the lining over it like this and stitch and close it up, and I'm going to close the armhole area too. I'm going to leave the side and the down parts. So I've gone ahead to attach the sleeves and close the top. This is what I have. So I went ahead to gather the down part like this. After gathering it, the I dragged it to the size of this fabric. So I dragged it to make sure it will fit into those parts of the fabric. So I'm done taking the darts for this part and I ironed it flat. So this is what I have. So I'm going to place the two right sides on each other like this, and I'm going to join them together. I'm done stitching them together and this is what I have. So I'm going to place the lining over it to cover the rough edges. So I'm going to place the lining on this part and stitch it on it, stitch it straight to the end. This is the back piece. I took in the data and this is what I have. Now I'm going to attach the sleeves to it. So I'll make sure I place it correctly because the sleeves is already on the front piece. So make sure you place it correctly and pin it to your back piece. So I'm going to pin this side, then I'm going to pin the other side to it. After I stitch the sleeves to the fabric, then I'm going to use this facing to turn it. So I'm going to turn the neckline, then the armhole parts. So after turning the back neckline, I went ahead to close up both sides of the fabric with my body measurement, and this is what I have. So I'm done with the gathers on this part. So I gathered it and I closed the back with the half an inch I added to it. So this is what is looking like on the wrong side, and this is what is looking like on the right side. So I'm going to attach this to the half length of my dress. So this is what the half length is looking like. So I'm going to turn it over to the right side, then I'm going to fold it equally like this and notch the center. I'm also going to notch the center of the skirt also. Then I'm going to pin both centers together like this. Then I'm going to sew it round like this from the center round the skirt to the other center. So I'm done attaching both of them together and this is what I have. This is the finished look of the dress. So if this tutorial was helpful, please ensure to like and subscribe.